Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have the top 16 breakdown with deck list for the DBS Akon Regional that happened this past weekend. It was hosted by PlayTCG, and shoutouts to them for hosting it and also giving me a good chunk of these top 16 deck lists, and also shoutouts to Arturo Castro for getting the last couple ones I was missing. I really do appreciate that. And also, real quick, these forums are actually a good chunk of work to put together to transcribe in a DBS deck planet and everything else. If you guys aren't subscribed to me, please consider hitting that button. It means a lot to me, and I personally know through analytics that less than half of my viewers on videos like these are subscribed to me. So it really would go a long way, and I don't really ask for that very often, so I really would appreciate it. Anyways, enough of that. Let's go into the actual breakdown for this tournament. You will see that there are a lot of leaders, which is good for the meta and good for my Photoshop skill testing, I guess, because there are a lot of slices in this pie chart for me to put in there. But we had 4 Cell Reboots, 3 Red U7s, 1 Finn, which ended up winning, a Green Cooler, a Shenron, an Aandroidd 21 and 16, Towa from the new BT17, Janemba Male, Gogeta Xeno, and Super Saiyan God Goku. So a good amount of diversity. Not a lot of new cards or leaders from the top 16, and or at least from BT17, which just got released. And in general, this is a tournament for our first tournament for BT17, our first tournament with the new ban list. And additionally, it was 128 players with a best of one pre-side format as well. So a really kind of new format for a lot of things. And normally when we do have these new formats, we have generically the better decks from the previous format, and then a kind of small section of new cards. Normally, unless the new a new leader is busted, it takes a little bit for these new kind of archetypes and everything to get into the metagame. So something that I would say that a lot of people would be expecting, like no GT, like red GT spaceship made in top 16, and barely any yellow in general. Yellow didn't get hit by the ban list. The big things that got hit were Gogeta Xeno, which there was one in the top 16, and red Piccolo specifically, which definitely did not get in this top 16. But red U7 Goku still really good. A good amount of Cell, and by good I mean the majority of anything of the Cell Reboot, which caught me by surprise a little bit, and I do want to talk about that. And of course, Finn winning the tournament is pretty spectacular in a lot of ways. So we're just going to go over the individual deck list right now. We're just going to choose the best, or not the best, but the highest placing deck list of each leader, which is still 11 that we're going over. So sorry for the 5 we're not, but we're going to start off with the first place. So this is Tony Rodriguez Finn list. And obviously not a lot of change from BT17. And I think it's a little bit more of two things, right? We do have 2 larger decks not in the running as much, meaning we don't have King Piccolo and we don't have Gogeta Xeno, which both were probably the more aggressive list in the format. And Finn is kind of more a mid-range strategy, especially since it is a mid-range strategy that has some potential to interact with your opponent's unisons. And with all the BT17 stuff that we're seeing, there are a lot of unison-based strategies right now. And so if you're able to kind of interact with them with something like Finn, you can do some good things with it too. So we're seeing not a lot. We do have the new Super Mira, just one of these boys. And also, I guess we always kind of have to look at the sideboard too, if it's best of one pre-side. Nothing, I would say, too out of the ordinary. 1 Dark Plot, so you can choose 1 battle card in your warp, but then it costs 4 or less to play it. This goes use a battle card with Overwhelm. You choose up to 3 of your energy and switch them to active mode. So what this would be used for I guess this guy. You can play him for technically 1, and then when this card's played, draw 1, then choose 1 card in your hands into your warp, and then has a Union Absorb for 3. If you have 4 or more energy, you place 1 Towa from your warp underneath. You can play a mirror with any cost 7 or less. So just kind of a way to go into this boy here, the old Mira. It is still a kind of good card. If you play it with Union, you get to milk your opponent, discard 3, and then Double Strike also sends him to the warp, so the Deborah should not be able to interact with them. Yeah, when it's discard. So since it warps and not discards, it's like hand destruction your opponent can't get around. And so like this is kind of like just a big mid-range strategy to kind of go in there and help you out. So and like this Towa, you're already using For one black spirit boost, if your leader cards a black fin card, place up to one card underneath your leader into the drop area. Also, you get to search your things. I don't think you use the active main for this as often, but there's also the Towa Twisted Sister, and this has always been kind of a niche card in the sense that if you're that you can always tap out if your opponent's not really going out, you can use this on your opponent's turn. And not only is this like lets you shuffle a card back into their deck, but you also get to draw the card and having the not having to tap out, but being able to make the choice to tap out when you know you're safe is kind of handy too, because there's like a lot of things you do on your opponent's turn with your energy too, especially the Union Absorber too, and just kind of go from there. You can also play this big 8-drop fin as well if you need to, and that's really all the insight I have. I don't have a lot of insight on the fin in general. I don't play this leader a lot, but obviously it won a tournament, so it's kind of in a good spot, I guess, right? So there we go. That's the insight there, and congrats to Tony for the top there. Next up, we do have the new cooler from BT17. And so this is the kind of unison swap kind of archetype that both green and yellow had with the Empower. It's really, really good. And you're seeing that there are 24 unisons being played in this list, which is quite a lot, especially when you consider like none of them have combo power. And sometimes they can be stuck in hand. But some things that green have that kind of help that first is the cooler itself. Being able to, when one of your unisons placed in the dropper, you get to draw one. Also, active battle, discard one green unison from your hand. Choose this card or up to one of your green unison cards. It gets plus 5k power for the battle. And it's not once per turn, so you can just keep doing this. And so all your unisons turn to 5k power. So it doesn't even matter how many unisons you're running. You still have this good combo power. So the kind of idea with this is you do your Empower chains. There are some really good ones, including the Whis and Frieza. You both just get the discard one just for going into them as long as they have 3 or more markers, which is nice. We do also have the Salza and the Nias as counterattacks too. So counterattacks and counterplays. So it's kind of nice just to be able to go up to the chains through on your turn, go through like Whis and Frieza, and on a Frieza that's a big 10k with 4 markers, 5 markers, and then from there, if they're trying to kind of pressure this down a little bit, you can use your counters. You kind of help that out a little bit, and then you always end on your Frieza to kind of end the game. In the sense that this can become a dual attack 30k triple strike that can still switch to active by the end of the turn and have blocker. Like, this is such a good game ender in so many ways. You just kind of go from there. There are some other kind of like hand destruction archetype stuff too if you want to do it, especially with the 1-drop cooler or the 4-drop cooler. Both of these, like this is a really nice card to like you can play for 1 later in the game, as well as making your opponent discard a card. And I don't know, green's just really good at making those discard plays anyways as it is. We're seeing 4 charismatic Friezas and the Fuse Zamasu you can go into afterwards too. Looking at the side deck, we do have like a good mishmash of green stuff, hand destruction stuff for ourselves, and Oceanus for like if we need to negate, and I don't know, like green just has a lot of good option cards too, and it's nice to see green doing well in a tournament as well. It's been a minute. Also playing the Invader's Vow as your new secret rare. So if your lead card is green or Frieza Clan and your opponent has 3 or more energy, your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand and discards them. So for 1 energy, you make your opponent discard 2, which is kind of nice. Also choose up to one of your opponent's battle card energy cost as less than or equal to the number of Unison cards and Frieza Clan cards in all leader energy battle, Unison, drop, and warp, and KO it, then remove this card from the game. So immediately, like this gets you like pop 2. But it's just like Unison cards. Like if you charge Unison cards, you can do that. You can even just use the active battle for cooler to discard the amount of extra Unisons you need to get to the Invader Vow value. The amount for Invader's Vow to pop the card that's swinging in. I think this is all very nice, and cooler is in a good spot for I think this future meta. It's kind of like King Cold, but just like a little bit like the newer version of King Cold, I'd say. So there we go. Next up, we have Aron Rodriguez's Sin Shenron. So this is also this is Tony's brother, as I've understood it too. So really funny. There's also 2 other brothers as well. We do have the Casablanca brothers, both playing Cell Reboot, which is really interesting. But for the Sin Shenron, I don't have a lot to say about this. Sin Shenron didn't get hit by the ban list, and it's I would say probably top 5 leaders in the previous format. So yeah, it's probably still doing good right now. it's just nothing new. I will say all just consistently good cards that's been running for a very long time. I will say in the best of one format, some interesting things. You can just go into the aggro format or just the mid-range format of it, depending on what you feel like the opponent's leader is doing. And I think that is a bit of an edge for it too, and it's kind of nice. And you can also put the Deborahs into your deck too if you're playing against something that has hand destruction, because I think since Shenron does have a bit of a weakness to hand destruction, so having those Deborahs to help mitigate that is kind of nice. So not a lot to say there. We knew that Shenron is probably not going away for a while still. And that is, I think, still true. Anyways, next up, we do have another Aron, Aaron Barton. So this is for the Cell Reboot, and all of the Cell Reboot lists are I would say, at least 50% the same deck. Everyone's running pretty much all 1-drop cells, all 3 1-drop 17/18s, the 3-drop 17/18, the 4-drop cell, the 8-drop cell, the Super Saiyan 3, Vegito, and Frieza. Like this entire top row is pretty much in every deck at the same ratio. Some are playing 4, some are playing 3, but almost all of these exist in the same thing. Clones and Dormant Potentials are very popular too. This is the super combo you want to use as well, especially since you can put these cards back into your deck, which is what you need sometimes, and just kind of go from there. I do want to say, all right, this is I have very little. I have no evidence, and I don't think people cheated or anything like that. I don't even want to say the word cheated. But one thing, and this is more of a public service announcement, the active main for this card does not cost, it costs 4, but you also have to pay the 1 for the extra card. So if you want to do the active main of effect, to play a Cell Xeno from under your leader, or a green cell with energy cost 7 or 8 from underneath it, you have to pay 5 energy. All right, that is how it's ruled, and I'm pretty sure that's how it's ruled at the tournament too. I wasn't there, so I don't know. This is more of, again, a public service announcement, but this does cost 5 to be able to play a perfect 4 cell or to play the secret rare from there. I'm pretty sure that's how everyone ran it, but I know that's caused a lot of confusion in the past, and since this is doing well as a leader, I do want to mention that so people aren't playing this at 4, which is incorrect. I know that playing it at 4 probably makes it great instead of just, I felt like 5 was like too much for this effect anyways, but that is how this is ruled. And I want to say this too, because every single one of these decks ran Wretched Regeneration, which I've never, like all other versions of Cell Reboot, I see most people dropping that off. So I just want to mention it because that's just how it's ruled. I'm pretty sure everyone played it that way, but for people who are interested in getting into Cell Reboot, since it's doing well, do take note of that, because that is how that's ruled. Anyways, public service announcement over. Going into the side deck, I think that's kind of where more of the creative juices go. So there's the Bardock, which you can use if you want to go even more hand destruction. If you're not worried about your Unison dying, and you're not worried about like the giving up on the additional draw that you would be getting with the deck, I think the Bardock is kind of nice. I do like the Bardock too in general, because it is really obnoxious if your opponent makes you is trying to make you discard cards, or you can make your opponent discard cards for wanting to combo too, which is kind of nice. Blue Impulse is good. Big Amor is good too. Most of the cell decks run these, though. If your leader card is green, your opponent can't attack with battle cards any cost 5 or more until the start of your next main phase. So depending on the archetype, like Sin Shenron, you can just say, okay, for 2, you can't swing with your big boy Sin Shenron. So that is that. I think it's a lot of matchup stuff, but it's a good card for that. And everything else is pretty standard. Vegeta's great at popping boards, which Cell doesn't have like a lot of inherent ways to get around barrier. So having a card that pop barrier is good, especially since it's for Unison, so you can still kind of tap out for 4 and then still have dormant potential to kind of save you. And in general, yeah, I think this is a good deck. I think Cell's in a good spot, and I totally forgot to add him to my tier list video when I made it a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to make a redaction of that probably next couple weeks when we have maybe some more results to go over. And I think, yeah, it looks like Cell's in a good spot right now. Next up, we do have Rohit's Aandroidd 21. I do also want to talk about Jared's Aandroidd 16. These have been like, I don't think they're actual rivals. I think they're very good sports, both of them. But always in my mind, they're like, oh, these are the heated matchup of both playing like blue Aandroids with a blue green package. Obviously, both these decks are kind of have some different top end stuff and everything, but it's really cool to see like both these players being so adamant about their specific leader, only really playing their leader at competitive events and still topping and doing super duper well with them since nationals of last year. At least the North American nationals, they've still been playing these leaders and doing well. So with Rohits, some additional cards that we get for here is the new super combo, but he's not using it. But I believe that Jared has it at 1, so it's a blue-green super combo Aandroidd you can use to untap, which is kind of nice. And then there's also both were kind of looking at some additional cards, such as like the new Aandroidd 1718 Limitless Energy. So Actimane it's a blue-green if you it negates an energy exhaust if your leader is a blue-red ribbon, which neither are, but for blue-green, if your leader card is blue or green, play this card from your hand or energy, and then play choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards any cost greater than or equal to their current energy, place at the bottom of their owner's deck. And then you can just play this for 2 from your hand too, so it's not even a big cost for doing so. It's a good way to like wipe up cards that are like bigger than their current. Like it's like a super Kamehameha kind of thing on play, which is nice. And it does have deflect and dual. Like a 20k dual attack is good for getting rid of obnoxious unison. So I think it's a solid card. It kind of fits in both archetypes, and both are kind of playing around with it in their sideboard, including the Kustu as well, which is depending on the matchup too, is a great counterplay if your opponent kind of just plays a lot like a chunky dude every turn that can get hit with it. But yeah, other than that, like these are pretty solid lists still. Piloted by both very great players in the archetype. Obviously, the Aandroidd 21 has more RAM potential and kind of like a high end with like Super 17 to play up to 3 Aandroidd cards with any cost of 5 or less from your energy area, which can be up to your 4 of Aandroidd 21s. So that's something to be aware of. And that's kind of like a ramp up to just getting that destruction there, which includes having these Vegetas ready to rumble to kind of stall out and get your turn, get another turn, which is nice. And then like Jared's is more of just pretty much what Jared's been doing for a long time, being able to play his Aandroidd 16, from his energy, get the advantage from there, and just be a very obnoxious deck. So congrats to both of these for their top 16s, and I have no doubt we'll be seeing more of these in the future. Next up, we do have Salvador Salinas, Universe 7 Goku. Obviously, I'd say this was probably the best deck of the last format that did not get hit. I know besides Shenron, but I think this is still better than Shenron. It's just super good at what it does, and it's like now that King Piccolo doesn't exist, it's probably the best red aggro list that we have at the moment. Nothing really got released from BT17 for it. It's just in a good spot. It's solid, and people keep playing it. I mean, there's 3 of these made it into the top. So I think Red's U7 Goku's still in a good spot. If you still like this deck, you can still do well, and I don't think you should abandon it. So that's really all I have to say about that. There's not a lot of changes in here. A little bit of ratios. Only like interesting thing I'd say is Aandroidd 18, the promo, is seeing more use now, like both these and the Gohan at the same time. But other than that, nothing too out of the ordinary. And it's just a solid list for solid players, and that's all I gotta say. All right, next up we do have Towa by Erik Moyano. So this is a leader I probably underestimated a little bit when I was doing my tier list as well. I didn't think this was super solid in a good spot, but I think after doing some testing with it and people telling me to test it and look at it again, I think it is a little bit better than I first looked at it, especially since there's just a lot from it from being a black Towa leader. There's a lot of decks that kind of support that, including like this demi is like this card's just made to be broken. It's tried to help like an old leader that was bad, but it's open-ended enough that a lot of other leaders can use it, which is kind of nice. And you're able to just get a bunch of cards out for free. You can get Poutine out in this list too, which can be obnoxious if you're able to play it right. And there's a lot of ways to kind of use some of your tokens and stuff to just get a lot of small values over time. And this new Super Mirror Overflowing Power is a great unison for this deck too. Being able to get a lot of markers on this very easily, being a 20k, and then also being able to give your skillless cards blockers and stuff like that. And like it's just a good card for the deck and for the control aspect. So and then when I say control, I mean probably more mid-range stuff. The super combo, or not super combo, the secret rare of choice also is the Majin Buu, which since we do have a Black Demon Realm race card as our leader, we can activate this by reduce it as it had no specifier. So you just play it for 3. It's a 3 counter that if your leader is if it's not your leader card swing, you can negate the counter. So you can really just make this a 30k double strike for 1 black with Spirit Boost, and then you can just for this. So for 4, if this was already out, you can have a 30k double strike that your opponent can't counter. You can maybe win the game off that. So I'm sure that happened once or twice with it. But you also have like these mirror double strikers for 1 that technically don't cost 1, which is pretty good. Towa gets a lot of value off the tokens too. We do have the ultimate minus energy powerball. So if your leader card is mono black, shoots a 20 of your opponent's battle cards to 15k power less, ignoring barrier, send it to their owner's warp. So I'm sure like and since this is black unison in play, you can activate this counter skill without paying its energy cost. So like this, people aren't playing around this as much still since it doesn't like exist as much. Also, you can do a choose 1 of your black leader cards or battle cards gets plus 15k power until the end of the battle if you need to, which is kind of good. I don't know. All this is good. It's a good card for what you're doing, and kind of this like a big kind of mid-range value-based deck that still kind of leans aggro. I think this is better than a lot of people, including myself, thought it was, and I think more and more people kind of catch on with that, especially with Gogeta Xeno being not as good as it used to be. I think this can kind of take its place if people want it to. Talking about that, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it right now. We'll look at Gogeta Xeno, and so this is Gerardo's Ledezma, and I think I'm going to do an interview with him later this week. You need to reach out to me, and so I don't have a lot to say about it. Obviously, what I will say is that this did get a bunch of hits on the ban list. We have 1 of this, and this is now this. When you said this, when I saw this list, I'm like, wait, is this? This isn't the banned one, right? No, there's another 6-drop Gogeta SS3 with Union Fusion. So this is a promo, and probably like the one you use now. But man, just like losing 7 cards that were pretty instrumental to your archetype is kind of important. But now it slows it down a little bit, but there are a lot of ways to get a lot of value, including like you can just still run the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta thwarting the Dark Empire, and it's a good game ender and in a lot of ways too. So I think it's fine for the deck if you need to go into it. I mean, just for 4, being able to play this for a 35k triple attack blocker, being able to pop essentially 4 cards of your opponent's 2 from hand and 2 of their battle cards ignoring barrier, and then still having this blocker up is good. And so I don't know. I think the deck is still fine. I think it does have it did lose out on a lot, and but I think with this deck being not as fast as it used to be, it does let more decks that weren't as prepared against aggro come out of the woodworks, and I think that's kind of nice too. But so congrats to Gerardo, and look forward to an interview with him later this week. All right, going back, this is Kelsey Samples, Janemba Mill, and every time we have a new format, Janemba Mill tops. Like, not don't you can quote me on that, and you can go back and you can tell me I'm wrong, but every time we have a new format, someone always brings a mill deck, and someone always gets top 16 with it. And I think that just shows just how solid this deck is in a lot of ways. You'll see that there are no new cards. What's the newest card? I'm thinking it's this card. It's the secret, right? This was from set 15, and this Riot Javelin was Draft Box, which was before set 15. So yeah, no new cards. Like, you just dust off this deck. You say, all right, cool. We have a new format. We have a regionals. Bam, take it out. I'm going to win with it, and that's what you do. So every time there's a new format, anything that's like great and aggressive that used to exist is game, and something that is mill based for those slower decks is still game too. And obviously, like, this does well against Universe 7 Goku, which a lot of people were playing at this event because it was the best deck that did not get hit. And I think it's still in a good spot. I don't know. Mill Janemba I don't think is ever going to be not viable in some capacity, and it's always super solid when under a good pilot. So that's all I gotta say about Mill Janemba, but it's a goodie. And then lastly, we do have Henry Silva's Super Saiyan God Son Goku. And so we did have like one event with the Android 17 MVP at the original, and then it got immediately eroded. And then we got these invokers going back to not its original leader, but with the Super Saiyan God, Son Goku, Crimson Warrior. So the reason that this is an appealing leader is a couple things. One, you're able to switch up to one. Like, it's better than Soul Striker for a couple of reasons. One, you can still awaken underneath 4 or above 4 life, which Soul Striker can't do anymore since the errata that it got. So this, I think, is slightly better leader for that sense, especially since you can like just discard a bunch of Saiyan cards, and then from there you get advantage from it later too. We do have some Saiyans that you want to be discarding. This Vegeta can be good too, in the sense that if all your opponent's energy is in Restman, to get this card's energy exhaust in all areas, which is somewhat easy to do, especially like turn 1 R2, you can just get this played very easily. You just kind of go up your chain. And so if you have extra Gokus, you don't mind discarding them for this. And then you put them underneath your leader to draw 3 and switch up to 1 of your energy to active mode. And then from there, you always get the draw 1, and then you get like 1 like active main where you can get to draw 1 card and switch the extra energy to active if needed. So I think this leader is really cool. I know a lot of people, it got overshadowed by Soul Striker. I guess overshadowed is the wrong word, because it didn't get a lot of viewage because Soul Striker is still in a good spot. But I think he's a cool leader. I think there's a lot of cool things, and it's kind of open-ended for what it is, even though they made a whole archetype for it and almost no one uses it for that. But I think it's a lot of fun, and this is a cool list to take advantage of all that. But that is the last list that we're going to go over today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want this deck list document, it should be in the description of this video. And again, if you guys made it all the way here and you're not subscribed, you better be. Like, you just watched me ramble for like 20 minutes about Dragon Ball Super, so you must like something I'm doing, and I would appreciate that. But again, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.